Welcome back to the class. So far, we've been speaking about economics. One of the component of economics, that is microeconomics. So we've always highlighted about what is microeconomics, what is the scope of microeconomics. We spoke about topics like demand, supply, elasticity, law of variable proportion, law of returns to scale. Basically, to summarize, we were just focusing on one branch of economics, that is microeconomics, where we were talking about a particular individual, a particular firm, a particular industry, a particular commodity. Okay, so everything was studied under the microscope in microeconomics. However, we have to shift our focus to the next branch of economics, that is macroeconomics. Now, when you talk about macroeconomics, as the word suggests, macro, which means we are going to talk about big topics, right? Not only topics, but I would say whatever is included under macroeconomics is studied as a whole. Okay, now if you see the word macro, it is derived from a Greek word which is macros. Okay, the first person to coin this term was Ragnar Frisch in the year 1933. Okay, basically what do we study in macroeconomics? So macroeconomics, basic problem of macroeconomics is the determination of flow of income, and theoretical foundation of macroeconomics is the circular flow of income. So for time being, you need to understand now that in macroeconomics we are going to study about the entire nation's income, how the flow of the entire nation's income is. Okay, and how we are going to understand that how much income is to be given to which factor of production. So this is the basic problem. Okay, let us move ahead to the definition. So according to Professor Bolding, so Kenneth Bolding is his name, he says that macroeconomics studies the overall average and aggregates of the economic system. Very important point I would like to highlight here is, in economics you have to remember these two words. Okay, one in macroeconomics, one is the aggregate. Okay, and the other one is, you can say that it is whole, whole, whole. So these two words you will always see in this subject, macroeconomics. Okay, so it studies the overall average. Okay, average, what may be the average income of the people, the average consumption of the people, the average saving of the people, right? And the aggregates of the economic system. Aggregates of the economic system would be total income, total consumption, total investments. So all of this, aggregates and total word are synonyms. Okay, so this is what is all in macroeconomics. So macroeconomics, you are going to study uh, the entire nation's, you can say, different variables of the entire nation, the variables such as income, consumption, savings, and all of this. Okay, so let's proceed further. Now, if you have to understand what is the nature of macroeconomics, so macroeconomics, there are around 3 and 6 and 7 nature which you need to understand. First of all, I told you that it is an aggregative economics, which means it studies the entire nation's variables, which are probably the total prices of all goods and services, the income, the total level of employment, the total level of output, all of this. Okay, that is why it is called as aggregative. Second is, it uses a monetary expression. Now, what is the meaning of monetary expression? Monetary expression means everything in economics is denoted in money terms. Okay, money value. So if you tell me how much is the total output, so I'll tell you the total output in monetary value. If I'm measuring it for India, then I would express it in INR, okay, in rupees, right? If I am measuring it for the US, then probably I will measure it in dollars, okay? So it depends from country to country in which currency that country is using. According to that country's currency, they will express it in monetary terms. Third one is no separation between consumers and producers. Now whenever we are studying macroeconomics, we are not splitting the economy unlike we were doing it in microeconomics. We were splitting, a consumer is a different, a producer. Here we are treating everybody same, okay? So there is no separation between consumers and producers. So in macroeconomic analysis, we have to think in terms of economy as a whole. We have to consider that producers in the market of one sector becomes consumer in the other sector of the economy. So if I am a producer in one sector, that means I am a producer in the agricultural sector, okay? So agricultural sector, I'm a farmer, I'm a person who produces wheat, rice and all that. So I become a producer, okay? But then if I have to buy a car, so from the automobile sector I am buying a car, so I turn to be the consumer of that sector, right? So this is what it means, that the producer of one sector becomes a consumer of the other sector. And that's why we do not have this bifurcation in macroeconomics. We treat the consumers and the producers to be one and the same. The next one is one man's expenditure is other man's income. Now let me give you an example, okay, for this scenario, for this statement, one man's expenditures other man's income. I'm a producer and I have employed factors of production like land, labor, capital, right? So I have started this factory of textiles. So now I have my workers working for me full time. Now I have to pay them wages, right? So I am paying them wages on monthly or daily or hourly basis, whatever you consider. But then I'm paying them, and that payment for me is an expenditure. However, it turns out to be an income for the workers. So my expenditure becomes the other man's income or the workers income. So this is what you have to understand from one man's expenditures other man's income, okay? Let's move on to the next one. Income is the key variable. In macroeconomics we basically deal with income, okay? The total income of the nation, the total income of the people in the nation, all of this. So you are just basically dealing with the entire nation's income, okay, with the money. So that is, income is the key variable. Studies behavior of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. You have come across this word demand and supply in the microeconomics, but you were dealing it with an individual perspective, right? You were just seeing it from an individual viewpoint. However, here you have to consider it to be aggregate. Aggregate means what? Aggregate means the total of the entire nation. So you are seeing the nation's demand, the nation's supply. So here it is a little different, okay? This is what you have to understand. What is the meaning of aggregate demand? Aggregate demand is the total demand and aggregate supply is the total supply. Just understand this much for time being. So you are studying the total demand of the nation and total supply of the nation, unlike you were studying in microeconomics individual demand and individual supply. So that is the difference between the two. Now if you observe, I am focusing on microeconomics at the same time when I am explaining macroeconomics. The reason being that you all might get a question of differentiate between micro and macro. So if you get a question as such, you have to be in a position to write at least 10 differences between them, okay? So here it is aggregative, there it is studying a particular thing at a time, okay? Microeconomics using the slicing method, macroeconomics uses the lumping method, then definition you can write of micro, of macro. Okay, and there are many more, we'll see that later on. And the last point that in nature of macroeconomics you have to understand is equilibrium condition is complex. Now it is very difficult to study the equilibrium condition when you're dealing with macroeconomics, because you're studying the entire variables as a whole. You are not splitting between the variables, right, like how you were doing it in microeconomics. So imagine you have to study when aggregate demand is equals to aggregate supply. That becomes an equilibrium situation. It becomes a very difficult situation to study, also to meet, maybe to achieve, right? And another one was when aggregate expenditures equals to aggregate income, and then another one is when exports is equals to imports, that's balance, right, of payment. So so many situations, when you are studying as a whole, it becomes tough for you to achieve the equilibrium situation. Okay, let's move on to the next one now, that is scope of macroeconomics. Now when you're studying scope of macroeconomics, let me see that there are around 7 points again in scope of macroeconomics. Scope of macroeconomics simply means that how far is the reach of macroeconomics. So what are we going to study in macroeconomics? So point number one, we are going to study about theory of income and employment. Now what is theory of income and employment? In this theory we basically study that what is the level of income in the in the economy, what is the level of employment in the economy. Okay, so that is what we are going to study. Next is theory of economic growth and distribution. How can we accelerate the growth of a country, and then whatever income is generated in that country, how can we distribute that income? Okay, what are the modes of income that we get? Rent, wages, interest and profit. If you remember in micro, I told you that these are called as the factor payments. Okay, you are employing factors of production like land, labor, capital, entrepreneur. What are you paying them in return? You're paying them rent, wages, interest and profit. So how are you going to distribute them in the economy? That is what you're going to study. Next is theory of consumption and investment. Now what is consumption and what is investment? Consumption is basically what we consume. Okay, like for example, if I am earning 20,000 rupees, right? So out of the 20,000 rupees for food, clothing and shelter, I require maybe 15,000 rupees. So that 15,000 that I spend is my consumption. Okay, now I consume it on various types of goods, on services, that's consumption. What about the remaining 5,000? Now the remaining 5,000 is put in the bank by me for my future. Okay, I keep it with the bank, so that bank keeps it safe. Now what happens with this 5,000? This 5,000, there is a person who wants to start his business, comes to the bank and tells that I want to start my business, can you provide me with some loan? Okay, so the bank says yes, we can give you. And like me, there are many people who are keeping 5,000, 10,000 in the bank. So bank will accumulate all that cash and give to the person who wants to start the business, right? So he takes this money and he starts a business, so that becomes an investment, right? So that's what we study in macroeconomics. What is the relation between consumption and investment? Okay, what happens to investment when consumption increases? What happens to in investment when consumption decreases, and vice versa? All those situations we get to study. Next is about theory of business cycle. Now what's theory of business cycle? Basically business cycle means boom period, recession period. Okay, so every business, every whichever business it is, it will not always be in a boom period. That means it will not always excel. Okay, there would be some situations when the business will go down, right? So, there will be some situations when the business will perform very nicely. So we are going to study the situations. Now when you talk about theory of business cycle, I need not mention or it's not compulsory that I'm talking about a particular business. It happens with the nation also, like the nation's total output. Sometimes the nation is performing very well, the nation is not performing very well. So you see that curve, okay, upward and then down. So when you're down, it is called as the a boom period, and it would be a recession period that is going on. So that's how your business cycles move. Okay. Next is about theory of unemployment. So unemployment, how can we reduce unemployment? We cannot achieve full employment. Okay, full employment means all the people who are above the age of 18 are working, right? So we cannot achieve full employment, but how can we minimize unemployment? That's what we study. Theory of inflation is how can we control inflation? We cannot make inflation zero, we cannot make it negative, so how can we control it? That's what we are going to study. What government does to control inflation, how does government intervene in controlling inflation. And last one is about the theory of international trade. Theory of international trade is basically focusing on the imports and exports, right? So what happens when your exports rises, what happens when your imports rises, how do you balance, what's balance of payment? All this is under the scope of macroeconomics. So I hope that makes sense, and we move on to the next slide, which is importance of macroeconomics. Okay, now what are the importance of macroeconomics? There are many. Let's look at them. The very first one is regarding explaining the functioning of economy. So macroeconomics helps us to understand the functioning of the economy. Okay, how does the economy function? Okay, what are the various different variables that are there? Interest, profit, and unemployment, consumption, investments, international trade. How are all these variables interlinked? How they are functioning? How can you control them? All of this functioning of the economy can be done uh, by studying macroeconomics. Okay, how does government intervene? How does government play a role in formulating different policies um, towards the betterment of the economy. Next is helpful in formulating policies. So macroeconomics is also helpful in formulating policies. What policies? Now government takes a note in the economy. If government sees that there is a problem, okay, that the problem is of inflation, or the problem is of unemployment, then government will quickly take some measures to control these problems. They can launch fiscal policies, they can launch monetary policies. Now what are these fiscal and monetary policies? Okay, these are nothing but these are tools used by the government in order to control inflation or deflation or recession or any of the problems faced in the economy. Next is provides common measure. So macroeconomics helps us to uh, uh, take care of the problems in the economy. So it will like for example, now there was a pandemic situation, right? So in that pandemic situation you got to see that all the there was a rise in the price of goods and services. Everything became too expensive. Okay, so how can the government control the prices? Maybe the government will start spending more, right? So government will try to bring down the prices. Say for example, petrol prices are rising too fast, right? So what the government will do, the government will quickly do subsidization, that is spend more money, right, and help the people to get these products at a cheaper rate. So that is provides common measure. Next is helpful in understanding performance on various sectors. Like there are three sectors basically: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary basically focuses with the agriculture. Secondary basically focuses of converting raw material into finished goods, and tertiary is basically the services. So understanding the performance of all these sectors, what these sectors basically require, how can you improvise their performance, because additionally cumulatively these sectors are adding to the output of the entire nation. So how can you do that? Practical relevance. Now macroeconomics has a very practical relevance, because whatever we are studying in macroeconomics is all practical. It is not something from the fairy tale books or something like that. Whatever you study, it is all practical. Helpful in studying the whole system. Macroeconomics gives you a launch pad to study the entire uh, entire economy, right? Helpful in comparing economics. So comparing the economics. So you can compare, right, nation to nation. How is the performance of US, how is the performance, like in the situation of pandemic. So how did government controlled the situation of India, and compared to how did the Trump government control the situation in the US, similarly in other nations also, right? Next is relevance with politics. Again, uh, when government comes into picture, politics comes into picture. Okay, so how different governments are performing, right? Because eventually the functioning of the economy, the controlling of the economy, the launching of the policies is in the hands of the government. So you are testing the government also with what kind of policies and what kind of efforts they are taking to control the economy. Last is helpful in personal and business decisions. So macroeconomics also helps you to take different types of decisions. It could be business decisions, it could be the national based, nation based decisions. So these are certain importance of macroeconomics which you need to elaborate on every point when you get in the examination. Let us move on to the last one, that is limitations of macroeconomics. Now what are the limitations? Every thing or every topic has its pros and cons, so let's understand what are the topics that macroeconomics is not highlighting, or it is highlighting and uh, it is falling short. So first one is about the aggregative analysis. So macroeconomics gives aggregative analysis of the economy. If we study macroeconomics, then we shall never get the idea of the problems. If we are studying the microeconomics, then we'll never get the idea of problems of national level, but at the average in macroeconomics can be misleading. So when you are studying microeconomics, you need not you will not understand how it works at a macro level. Okay, you will not get an understanding of what macroeconomic variables are. But if you are making aggregative study, that means you're just taking the averages. Okay, let me see the average output, let me see the average employment, average production, average prices. So I'm taking the averages. So sometimes these averages could be misleading. Based on these averages that I have calculated, I might take some certain decisions. Again, those decisions would be misleading, right? Micro and macro aspects to be studied. So whenever we are studying macroeconomics, please bear in mind we do not have to focus only on the macro part. Micro and macro both are dependent on each other. Okay, they go hand in hand. Okay, they are interdependent, they go hand in hand. So when we are focusing on macro aspects, we also need to study the micro aspects. Okay, if you are studying the total demand, that's the aggregate demand, you need to understand about individual demand also, similarly for the other variables. Next is about fallacy of composition. Now what's fallacy of composition? So one of the greatest danger of macroeconomics is that we generalize a lot, okay, on the individual's experiences. So it might not be true every time. So for example, the finance minister wants to control the inflation. Okay, so if the finance minister wants to control the inflation, he might just or she might just take a general look at all the situation and make certain decisions. Now those generalization of the situation and taking decisions could be dangerous. Okay, so you require a lot of detailed study to make certain conclusions, to make certain generalized statements about everybody. Next is deceptive. The for economic analysis, breaking up macro variables is important because these variables are deceptive. For example, there are two countries A and B. So national income of country A is very high compared to country B, but an economist should not jump at a conclusion that A's performance is better than B, right? Now why the national income of country A is higher than country B needs to be understood. Maybe the country itself is small, maybe the country's population is less, maybe the country does not have or the country has much more resources than country B. So there could be various different reasons why the national income of country A is higher than country B. So you cannot make a conclusion by saying that country's A performance is better than country B. This is one point. Next one is uneven effect on various sectors. Now what happens is, you are studying everything in general, you are studying everything as a whole, like I told you. So you're considering all the sectors together. For example, you are considering primary, secondary, tertiary sector, all sectors together. This might be misleading again. Okay, one sector could affect the other sector also. Maybe you're taking some decisions for the agricultural sector, that's the primary sector, that could create an impact on the secondary sector. So you need to understand. And unnecessary stress on aggregate variables. So a danger of excessive thinking in terms of aggregate is found in macroeconomics. These aggregates are by no means homogeneous, they are not same. Okay, we should always take into account aggregative variables which are homogeneous in nature. Okay, again, this alone can lead to accurate results, but here we are having aggregates which are heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means different in nature and cannot be aggregated. Macroeconomics will lose its usefulness if we start practicing aggregating the heterogeneous variables. Okay, so this is the last point that we need to understand. So what did we study in today's class? It was an introduction to macroeconomics. We saw that what is the meaning of macroeconomics. Then we spoke about who was the person who coined this term first. So it was Ragnar Frisch. Then we saw the definition of this. Then we saw what is the nature of macroeconomics, right? So there were a couple of points we highlighted. We saw that how far is the reach of macroeconomics. Then we studied about why it is important to study macroeconomics, and last but not the least, we did about the limitations of macroeconomics. So here I end the session for macroeconomics. Thank you.